asked some questions about it, including David McIntosh. He is president, of course, of the Club for Growth, and he joins us now. So, David, give us a sense. First of all, thank you for joining us. Secondly, give us a sense. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it?
Thank you, David, and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I hope everybody's well there. I'm worried about the overall deficit that it's creating, the $2 trillion figure. When you put it on top of the $2 trillion that they spent earlier in the year, that's $4 trillion, plus whatever the Federal Reserve is doing. But we recognize there's a crisis, and the economy is being shut down by the different government actions, so something needs to be done. Within that, what we like is that much of the program is set up as a loan program so that some of that can be repaid to the federal government. We think that's a smart way to do it. We also are, basically, I view it as a lost opportunity. The cash payments don't stimulate economic growth. They're just a transfer payment. So we would have suggested switching that into monies that would have directly gone to businesses to create and keep jobs so that people could stay employed. And then our big mantra is, first of all, do no harm. And in the previous bill, I think the House and Senate and Mnuchin negotiated this mandatory paid leave provision. And small businesses, that creates a huge cash flow problem, even if the government says they'll pay them back and make them whole someday. And so I suspect that's one of the reasons we saw an even higher spike in unemployment as small businesses looked at that coming down the pike. They're already losing revenue dramatically and thinking, I don't have cash to make payments to employees. I'll have to let them go and let them qualify for unemployment insurance.
So that may have put some burden on small business. There was also a fair amount of provision in there for helping small business, which is so much the engine that drives the U.S. economy, and particularly employment, as you suggest. Are we doing enough for small business?
I think a lot of the loan programs are very good. I think giving them as much flexibility on and bridge loans, essentially, so they can get through the cash crunch is going to be important. But honestly, the most important thing for small business will be, when it is safe, reopen the economy, because that's how they can survive and do well. And I know the president now has extended to the end of April the date when he thinks we're going to need to be shut down. And we've got to talk to the scientists and the doctors to understand the medical needs. But on the top of everybody's list has got to be, okay, but as soon as it's safe to open up, maybe just parts of it. Maybe young people can go back to work because they're less likely to be affected by this. Or we'll have to figure out ways to reopen the economy as soon as it makes sense.
What do you make of that? Because it's becoming really a sort of an ethical debate across the country about whether we should take some risks, knowing that some people might lose their lives to get the economy going. And some people, like Lloyd Blankfein, for example, for Goldman Sachs, says, if you crash the economy, you're going to lose lives because of that.
He's absolutely right. There's studies after study that show unemployment actually increases the death rate for people who are on unemployment or not occupied. And so there's a balance of risk. I think it's important for the health care system and the president to put things into context of, I saw today an estimate, maybe 200,000 deaths. There are over 2 million deaths a year in the United States, but that's a big number. And one of the things I think everybody's buying into and makes sense is flatten that curve of exposure so that more of those people could be treated and lives saved that way, and the healthcare system isn't overwhelmed with the big spike. I mean, basically, epidemiologists tell us when you have a new bug like this that is potentially deadly, it's going to spread quickly, and it'll be an epidemic, and then the society adjusts to it. Our natural immunities kick in. We have people that are not vulnerable to it, but we've got to get our society through that spike and then reopen the economy to keep people going after that.
And finally, David, what about the grants to the large corporations? You talked about small business. I know the Democrats put some restrictions on that, some oversight. Did you approve of that?
I think the most important thing is to keep things very flexible and to not have the government start picking winners and losers on those larger corporations. As much as possible, do it as a bridge loan and then let it get back into the marketplace. And stock values will start to go back up, as the president said. Some will take longer, right? It'll take a while for the cruise industry to recover because people will be less likely to take cruises for a while until their comfort level goes back up. The government shouldn't prop up every business and every industry, but I think we should provide that liquidity in the short term to help them that way. One of the things we should avoid are mandates. I talked with you earlier about the Defense Production Act. That's a way of ensuring that it actually is harder for business to respond to the crisis because they have to sit around and wait for orders from Washington exactly when they make things, how much, and where.
Yeah. That's fascinating. David, thank you so very much. This is David McIntosh. He's the president of the Club for Growth. Coming up later in the program, we're going to talk with Senator Ted Cruz of Texas about exactly what needs to be done for the states and their budgets. That's coming up on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.